All right, guys, and welcome to the channel. Welcome to part 2 of our Christmas inspired wine. A little sneak peek there. This video will take you all the way from where part 1 ended, all the way to the bottle. So if you have not watched part 1, go watch that. I'll try to put it up here somewhere so it's easier to find. From now on, I'm just going to be a little bit more patient, and I'm going to make one video from the beginning of making that wine or mead all the way to the end of tasting. That way you guys don't have to go find part 1, part 2, part 3, whatever. I think that'll be a little bit easier for everybody, myself included. So let's go ahead and get started today with our next step in the process. All right, so today is racking day to start the refining process. So this is fermentation is all the way done. We are at a 1.000 specific gravity on our Christmas wine here. So it's done. It may ferment further, but it's done for purposes what we want now. That's good enough to get it into another vessel, and we're going to go ahead and add bentonite today. Let me show you some of the stuff we're going to be using. There's the bentonite. I'll show you that just in a little bit. In reference to the bentonite, which is a clearing or refining agent, we are going to use these two things, and I imagine we're going to get this filled back up because we have an extra little mason jar here. This will probably get filled generally mostly back up. Hopefully this too, that'll probably be gone after we rack it and get rid of these gross lees down here. With that, we're going to make two individual bentonite additives, if you will, and I'll show you how we're going to do that with hot water and use these to shake it. Works great. Here's our sanitized 1 gallon vessel to rack over, and our 3 gallon vessel to rack over. And some tools there. You guys have probably already seen these or know what they are, or seen them in the beginning of the video or the part 1 video. But our hydrometer already tested the specific gravity. It is a 1.000. I'm not going to show you that and bore you, but that's why that's out here. Our auto siphon, our racking cane, and this is what we're going to use to be able to get our bentonite in. It's just a funnel that's been sanitized. Again, everything is. We're going to use this to put our bentonite into our carboy or our vessel once we get it racked over. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so our wine is racking over to our new clean and sanitized vessel. You see a little bit of bubbles there from the Star San. Don't worry about that. Star San is absolutely safe in its diluted state like that. It's actually just sanitizing as we speak, but it's perfectly fine. What we're trying to avoid here at the top, let me bring that up here, is you'll see I'm holding the racking cane or the auto siphon, I guess, whatever you want to call it, up here at the top. I don't want to let it sink down to the bottom where those gross lees are at. You can see that layer down there of gross lees. We want to avoid that at all possible. We're going to lose a little bit of space here, or volume, so to speak, but that's the important part. That's what this racking process is all about. So we'll go ahead and let that fill up. I won't bore you guys. I'll just go ahead and fast forward through this. All right, so we've got them racked over from the original vessels, 3 gallon carboy, 1 gallon, I guess, mini carboy, if you want to call it that, but into our new vessels. I didn't keep the 1 gallon gross lees to show, I forgot. But here's the 3 gallon, and this is what's left behind. You can see that kind of there in the bottom. That's what you're trying to avoid. You want to make sure that you don't get any of that into your new vessel, because it's just be harder to clear out, and that's the whole purpose of this, is the refining process. So you can see the headspace. I left it to about right here. I might even actually have to take a little bit of this out, put it over here, mainly because we're going to be stirring this up pretty aggressively with our bentonite, and it's going to foam a little bit, and we don't want to have it pop out of our carboy. So, and this is missing a little headspace, so it won't hurt to add a little bit in here. But when we add the bentonite, it's going to raise this level up just a little bit anyways. You want to get it to about right here if possible. With that said, this is just the first stage of the refining process. You're going to see with this batch, we're getting close to, so it's October 3rd today, and I want to get this into bottle pretty quickly. So I'm actually going to hit this with bentonite for the next 7 days, let it sit, and then I'm going to hit it with super clear after that and let it sit for an additional 7 to 10 days until we get it completely clear. So I'll use both those refining agents in tandem. They work great together, especially when you want to get a batch quickly cleared. So anyways, let's go ahead and get that started. All right, all I have here is those 2 jars I showed you earlier. There's a half a cup of almost boiling water in each one of these. I just warmed it up in the microwave. They sanitize things. Just follow the instructions here, which is going to be a half teaspoon. Let's see, I'm sorry, 2 teaspoons for a half cup of water. So this is a half teaspoon. So we're going to put in 4 of these in each one of these, and then get these right into our vessels over there. A little tip when you're putting this in, kind of sprinkle it about. It'll have a tendency to kind of coagulate together or stick together like a clay, which is what it is. It's volcanic ash. So it's an all-natural way to start the first stage of our refining process here. There's the first. Spread that around a little bit. And third. And the last. Now what we're going to do is put the lids on these. Nice and tight. And shake them extremely well. Bentonite has you can see the clumpiness there, or sticking in the corner. It will stick like that and stay like that if you don't really shake it. And give it a shake for quite a while before you add it into your brew there. All right, so now all we're going to do is just add this in. I did move a little bit of wine over to the 1 gallon from the 3 to give me a little bit more headspace here and increase or decrease the headspace here. Go ahead and pour that in. And this is good for up to 5 gallons. We're just going to pour the whole container in here. Doesn't hurt anything at all, so don't worry about that. But rather than having to measure it, spend time doing that just for 1 gallon and to figure it out, it's good for up to 5. So just think about it like that. You can see the bubbles starting to build already a little bit. That's why you need a little bit of headspace. For this one, it's easy. It's a 1 gallon. We're just going to throw the top on, tighten it up, and then shake it. All right, we'll put it in our 1 gallon. Now let's put it in the 3. You can see, good thing we left some extra headspace there to counter the volume I put in with the bentonite. Because we still need space to be able to incorporate this and mix it up. All right, so we'll go to mix this up. Another reason I love using drills in my processes, just makes it easier. We go all the way down to the bottom here. Yep, slow down. All right, so we'll get this well mixed. All right, so they are nice and incorporated with that bentonite. You can see still some foam there from the agitation of shaking it. That will all go away. These are going to sit here for about the next 7 days. That's what I usually do, is 7 days of bentonite, switch over to super clear when I'm trying to clear something up quickly, and then let it go from there. So it'll sit here. I'm not going to stir it for the next 7 days. I'll just let bentonite do the work. Some people will stir it, absolutely fine if you want to. But what I like to do is, as soon as those start to settle down, I don't like to pick them back up. So your choice. I just don't stir them. So we will come back when it's time for the super clear. All right, so it has been 10 days since we added our bentonite to these. They look pretty clear. I'm going to show you the flashlight just because the cranberries are dark. So this way it doesn't look very clear, but I'm going to show you the flashlight, what that looks like. And we have our stuff here that we're going to be using for our racking again, our auto siphon. We've got some bungs and some airlocks, different size vessels here. We have 4 gallons sitting here. You can see the lees down here in the bottom. We're going to lose wine because of that when we rack. So my guess is we're probably going to come out with about our 3 gallon full and maybe a half gallon. Maybe a little bit into the mason jar, but that's why it's important to have different size vessels. Like I said, we started with a lot of wine in that initial fermentation, and we're dwindling it down every time we rack it. So we'll probably end up at the end of this with about 3.5 gallons total, maybe even just 3.25. So that's why I make more wine than what's needed. But let's go ahead and show you the clarity here. So I always use a flashlight. You can see that it's been 10 days. They started this on October 3rd. It's October 13th. You can see the clarity is great all the way down in both of these. I hope that's coming through on the video there, but the way that you see that shine through, and see how you can see all the way to the bottom of the lees in the middle, that's what we're looking for there. So that's kind of that clarity we're looking for to our next step, where we're going to add in our second refining agent, which is going to be that super clear, and really get this polished up. So let's go ahead and rack it. All right, so you can see there's our loss there in the 3 gallon. I left a little bit more in the 1 gallon, only because it's not worth saving. That's only about a half a mason jar if I were to try to rack that. So it kept me plenty away from the lees down there at the bottom. And we ended up with 3.5 gallons. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and add in our super clear. And to be honest with you, really looking at this, it looks great. We're just going to really polish it up with some super clear. But to be honest, you could probably let this sit for just a week or so, just the way that it is, and it'd be ready to bottle. But we're going to hit it with super clear and get it super clear, haha, so to speak. But our first packet here, all I did was just split the packet. It comes in 2 parts. If you're not familiar with this, all this is just derived from shellfish. It's an all natural second refining process here. We're going to add this in. I'm going to put the majority of it in our 1 gallon. I'll put a little bit of it in our half gallon over here, although this is pretty clear already. And then in 1 hour or up to 24 hours, we'll add in our second pack, which is our Cheeto sand. So Curacao, Cheeto sand. This one we're going to dissolve in water, some warm water, and we're going to add this a lot more slowly. But Let's get this one in. Let's go ahead and get it in, get it incorporated, and then let it sit for an hour. That's about 3/4 of that. Now we'll add the rest into our little half gallon here. Some more in that, and then finish it up over here. Now we're just gonna stir these up. I'm gonna use a drill for this one. I'm just gonna shake that one. Use whatever method you like, but we're gonna get this really good and well incorporated. Just one little tip here. Make sure that these are seated wherever you're gonna be keeping them at during the clearing process. You don't wanna move it after we add the second part that we're gonna add in about an hour. And that's because it gets added very slowly and gently so that it can kind of work its way through the wine and grabbing up all those microparticulates to push down into the bottom of the vessel here. So this is on the fermentation table. It's just going to sit here for that hour, let everything calm down. We'll add in our second pack and then we'll let it refine for the next week or so. All right, so we have 1 ounce of warm water here, and we're going to use our second packet, which is going to be our Chitosan. We're going to pour that into the 1 ounce of warm water. All we're going to do is just get this all nice and dissolved and mixed in here. Make sure we get all of that liquid out of there. All right, got a sanitized spoon here. We're just going to stir that up, get it nice and dissolved. Doesn't take much. I mean, it's already a liquid, obviously, so almost just kind of diluting it. Alrighty. Nice and dissolved. Now let's add it into our wine. Just like we did with the first pack, I'm going to put the majority of this in the 3 gallon. Then I'll put a little bit into this half gallon. I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm not going to take specific measurements. And we're going to pour this slowly. That's the key to be super clear, is the second part needs to be poured almost at a drip pace. What they say is to basically count to 30, and by the time you're at 30, you're good as long as you're pouring it about that slow. So we're just slowly pouring this in. You can see it dripping in there. Again, nice and slow. Alrighty, there we go. Now these will just sit up and clear out even better. About the next 7 days, really in like 48 hours, you're going to see it's going to be awesome. But I'll let these sit for about the next 7 days, really clear out, and then we'll start working towards getting them in the bottle. All right, so we were on day 7 of our Christmas wine with that super clear. And you can see it is super clear, no pun intended here. So today what we're going to be doing, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than what you'll be doing. But I want to show you something first. I always use a flashlight. You'll see this in my other videos. And the reason is it highlights any kind of microparticulates or anything that is still within suspension in the wine. And right now we are perfectly clear. This would be absolutely fine from right now, just a bottle. So one thing I want to point out is clarity is good. We're done with that. But this is 24 hours before the actual bottling of this particular wine. And let me explain. So tonight, what we're going to do, well, tonight where I'm at right now, is we are going to add in potassium sorbate, and that's going to be because we're going to back sweeten our wine with sugar. So we're going to add in potassium sorbate depending on what we get after this process here, and it's going to be 1/2 teaspoon per gallon, so 1.5 teaspoons total. Teaspoon for that. Well, this is actually a half gallon, so this would be 1/2 teaspoon is fine. We're not going to split it down the hairs to the 1/4 teaspoon, but you get the point. We're also going to add in 1 Candom tablet per gallon. So we'll have 3 in the big boy and just 1 in the little, or we can actually, this is a little bit easier. We can just split a tablet and throw that in if that's what we get. So what's going to happen is this is going to stop any further fermentation. This is going to stop that yeast, any residual yeast period, even microscopically, microparticulates from going in to get that sugar and start processing it for alcohol. Again, why do we not want that to happen? That's because it's going to leave lees behind in our bottles, and that looks unsightly. And that's not what you want. You want your bottle to be nice and clean, clear for the remainder of its rack life. So that's what the potassium sorbate is going to do for us. We're going to put it in 24 hours beforehand. If you see my other videos, the reason is because that gives the potassium sorbate time to set up completely and kind of own the wine, if you will. So that when we go to add in that sugar tomorrow and back sweeten, it's already well established within the actual wine itself. So it's already well incorporated. And kind of the same thing with the sulfites here. This is going to keep our wine nice and sulfited while it sits in the rack. That's good for bacteria. It's good for shelf life. And it also gives that a chance to set up properly. So before we start adding additional sugar into it, all you need to do for this, I'm going to show you a little bit behind the scenes of what I do. You see my other videos, I do the same thing. At this point, all you need to do is rack this, get it off of the fine lees. Now, no longer gross lees. These are, so I can bring this down here. These are a lot finer. You can see that small little layer down there. So these are a lot finer than what we originally started with, the gross lees. This is the refining, or fine lees, if you will, the fine lees. So you're gonna rack it off there, being very careful not to suck up any of that fine lees whatsoever inside of your auto siphon. And you're gonna rack that into a new vessel. You're gonna add in the potassium sorbate. I'm gonna show you how to do all that. I'm gonna do that. You're gonna mix it in, incorporate it, and you're gonna let it sit overnight for 24 hours and let it stabilize. That's also kind of prevents the wine from bottle shock. There's a whole theory behind that. You can research it for days, but essentially just after agitating the wine, you want to give it 24 hours to kind of sit. And when we add this in, you'll see there's going to be some foam and whatnot, and it's going to agitate the wine. So another good reason to let it sit. I will not be racking it because I'm going to give this out to friends and family, as well as a small little home winery. So I will be filtering mine. It's just a version of sterile filter that I do at the last process before bottling. But what I used to do is I would just do what I'm telling you guys, and I would just rack this into a new vessel, add in my additives, let it sit 24 hours and bottle it up. So that's what you need to do. If you do not have a home filter, 99% of you will not have the home filter. Go watch my video on that. It's really awesome, but it is expensive to use, and it does add some time consuming into your overall process. But with that being said, you do not need a filter. It's not necessary. Don't think that your wine is not going to be clear if you don't have that filter. I'm just going to sterile filter this to ensure the best possible product at the end. But 99% of home brewers, homemakers, mead, wine, what have you, are not going to be doing that. Just rack the wine and get it ready for tomorrow. So let me go ahead and filter this. I'll be back in a split second for you to show you how the additives go in. All right, so our filtering is done. Hopefully your racking is done. Remember, you're racking, I'm filtering, but the same thing. So this is our total loss here. A little bit of a mistake, and this is a learning tip from someone who's done this many times. Pay attention right at the bottom of this little half-gallon vessel. I wasn't paying attention to where the hose was at. I looked over and I was talking to my daughter, and I stirred up the fine lees in there, and I immediately shut the pump off. The reason for that is if you had your auto siphon and you did the same thing where you just let your auto siphon drop into the bottom of the vessel, it's going to immediately stir everything up. That's why you guide that auto siphon down all the way, and you keep it at the top of the liquid, and you travel with the liquid as it goes down, and then you tilt the bottle at the end to get it the best amount of wine out of there. It's not worth it for me to try to save this. So all told, with the fine lees here, and I'll show you all that, see if I can get that in there. All that stuff that's inside there that's left behind, yeah, and it's blurry. But all that stuff's left behind. That's what we don't want, so it's out. And then I lost about a quarter of this half gallon or so. But the good part is that we got you can see how nice and polished, just standing here, oh, you can see the nice and polishedness of that wine just straight through it. I don't know if you can see this. Yep, there you go. There's my hand on the other side. Very easy, the light shining through, no problem. It's glossy all the way around. One of my favorite things on a new filtered or a new racked, nice clean carboy to watch the light bounce off the bottom of the carboy, because it's like a little glass mount range, but it looks really cool, and it's really impressive to know that you worked this hard and you got it this clear. Trust me, yours racked will be just as clear as this. And now you can serve this up for holiday and be really proud of it. So let's go ahead and add in our additives now. I've got our wine thief out because this is, again, one of the best parts. We're going to throw a little bit of wine in here. And I also need to take just a little bit out of here to add in our additives so that when I stir it up, I don't make a mess. We have our 2 spoons that we're going to be crushing our 3 Candom tablets with here for our 3 gallons. And again, a ½ teaspoon measure for our 1.5 teaspoons of potassium sorbate. I did want to show you this just as a side note here. This is the sterile filter, the bouillon sterile filter that I use, the triple filter system. That's what it looks like after it's done filtering that wine. And you can, if you look really closely, there's maybe some microparticulates. I guess micro would mean you can't see them, but some tiny bits in there and pieces. It does come out nice and polished, a little bit more than racking with just the sterile part of it is what I really enjoy. So that's what they look like. So I did want to show you something real quick. That's with the potassium sorbate in it. All I did was I pulled some of the wine out. I put it into a mason jar because I'm going to shake this around a little bit to kind of get it well mixed. And then I'll dump it right into the wine. That way it's just easier to overall incorporate. But you can see the wine color there as that potassium sorbate starts to really kind of absolve or dissolve rather, and it starts to change the color of that wine. The Canum tablets will do the exact same thing. It'll actually strip even more of the color. I'll put one in and show you what I'm talking about. All right, so there's one Canum tablet. Swirl that around, and now you can see the color is almost nearly unrecognizable compared to what it was before. And don't freak out about this. This is just what happens in a small, it's so concentrated in there right now. But when you add it into your overall batch of wine, it's not going to affect the color. Now, if you're adding in something for the very delicate color, lavender is a very delicate color of purple. And in a 1 gallon batch, even a 3 gallon batch, I've noticed sulfites will completely knock out the purple, unfortunately. So, but in any red wine, fruit wine, whether that's a fruit wine or it's a grape varietal types, sorts, it doesn't matter. Once you put it into a larger vessel, it's not going to affect it really. All commercial wines are sulfited, and 90, I would say, most homebrewers sulfite them so they can rack them and keep them. Either that or they pasteurize them, one of the two. All right, so let's go ahead and get our funnel. Remember, everything's been sanitized. And it's not going to look pretty right now because obviously once we dump this mess in, it's going to cloudy up the wine a little bit. But not to worry, that will go away overnight and it will be nice and crystal tomorrow. So just pour that right back in there. There we go. And then what I'll do is I use my drill stirrer on a nice low setting, and I'll really incorporate that in. So I'll get that stirred up. If you have a stirrer or don't have a drill stirrer, just use whatever. If you're using a small vessel, just shake it up. We'll do this pretty carefully because we don't want it to spill out. Won't bore you guys with the whole process here, but you can get a general idea of what we're looking at to try to get it incorporated. And any little residual gases generally is just going to be from the introduction of the sulfites in there. Most of the CO2 over time and over our racking processes is already gone. It's burnt off. That's evident in the taste of the wine. We're just making sure everything is nice and incorporated for tomorrow's bottling. All right, and there you have it. It is back on our fermentation table, resting for our 24 hours for tomorrow. 24 hours or just a little bit later, but not too much. You're not looking at, you don't want to let us do this 2 days before or 3 days before, because you want to be able to get this into a bottle and get that cork in it and let it properly seal. This has got it sealed. Obviously there's sanitizer in this. It's an airlock, it's a bung, but nothing's going to seal like a cork does. So I'm gonna let it sit here next to its brothers and sisters, the strawberry, cherry that we have in the super clear process right now, the Welch's grape over there that's in the bentonite process, and over there we've got apple wine and our mango green chili in the fermentation process. So and then all of the happy bottles over there. So all right, one of the best parts of this is, and you can see it looks beautiful. That looks great. That's exactly what we're looking for. Nice polished wine that people are not going to question whenever they pick up that bottle. So again, one of the nice parts about making your own wine is to a little bit of taste at every level. So I pulled this out before I put any of the additives in. All right. I'm very happy that the cranberry is not too acidic, not too tart. I was afraid of that it might just bite off your tongue or the back of your tongue and be real bitter. But it's it's exactly what you would expect cranberry to taste like. Let's see. Yep, no zing from the CO2 on the tongue, which means that this wine is properly degassed. There's no real gases left in it. You'll get a zing on the tip of your tongue if there's still CO2 left in it and needs some degassing. But cranberry forward, a little bit of zest in the back. Not much, but I bet you that will come out even better whenever we back sweeten this. Fruit always brightens up, always comes out better, even in the nose, once it has a little bit of sugar in it. So we'll fast forward 24 hours and get to bottle. All right, so today is going to be the best day, which is of the whole process, which is bottling. See our nice clear wine there. We have our corks that are sitting in a sanitizer. I have these linked down in the description. These are my favorite corks. These have the longest longevity and the fewest amount of problems, and they do not fall apart whenever you pull them out with a cork screw. So these are ones that are great. It sounds kind of nerdy, but people don't give enough credit to the corks. Those are sitting in sanitizer. Here's our bottle tree. If you've seen any of my videos, you know that I use a bottle tree. It just sanitizes it right up here. Some sanitizer comes out of that, squirts into the bottle, that drains down, and then gets all the sanitizer out in this little catch down here. If you're going to be bottling any kind of mead, wine in a bigger fashion or more often, this is best thing ever, time saver there. And we have our floor corker, which is going to be corking our wines. Super easy. Love it. It's just super easy. And over here, we're going to have a mason jar. The reason I'm going to be using this is because I had a long time ago, I used to actually put my sugar into water for a 1-to-1 ratio, and I would make a little bit of a simple syrup to back sweeten my wine. I don't do that anymore because I like to leave the ABV untouched as much as possible, as well as the overall flavor, nose, etc. Any water added into this at any especially in cups volume, is going to dilute that ABV just a little bit. So I'm not trying to mess with that, so we're just going to put in straight sugar. I have the sugar down there, just regular old cane sugar. We're going to be pulling using our wine turkey baster here because it pulls the wine out a lot faster. We'll be using this to fill this up about here with some of our wine, and then we'll be adding the actual sugar to this. That way we are only agitating or shaking a little bit of the wine and not stirring more air into the overall batch of wine, if that makes sense. So we will stir this, that will happen, but not as aggressively as this. So this will help us dissolve that sugar. We have our tasting glass. I believe I have these linked down there. These are awesome. You can see the tapered portion here. These are actually bourbon or whiskey glasses. They're awesome because they have the fat bottom and the tight top up here, which allows you to get a real good nose on your wine and taste. So I like those a lot. Over here, show you the additional tools. We have our sanitizer. We have our bucket because we are going to be putting our wine into this, or racking the wine into that to put our sugar in and do the stirring. We'll have a lid for that so we can keep it covered while we're not necessarily doing anything with the bucket. That way our wine does not get any oxygen or unneeded oxygen at this point. Remember, oxygen is the enemy. And then we have underneath the bucket here, we have our sanitized stirring wand that we'll be using for our wine in the bucket. And we have our auto siphon, and we have our bottling wand here. Pretty simple. That just goes right into the end of the tube. If you've seen any of my other videos, this goes down to the bottom of the bottle. You press this little mechanism and it allows anything to come out the wine, and you can fill the bottles up perfectly every single time with this cheap little tool here. So that's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first step was just, and I did not record it, the first step is to just use your auto siphon and get that out of that glass carboy into our bucket, where we're going to be mixing and tasting, doing our taste test in there with the sugar. All right, so all I've done is taken our wine and put it into our mason jar here, and I'm going to get 2 cups. We're going to start with a sanitized cup here. We're going to get 2 cups of this, just pure sugar. I'm going to pour that in there. It's not going to all dissolve, but it's going to dissolve pretty well once I put the lid on it and agitate it up. So I know that 1 cup is not going to be enough. I tested the pH behind the scenes, so to speak. It's 3.29. This is pretty acidic, pretty tart, which is to be expected with a, almost 100% cranberry wine with a little bit of that orange zest and juice. So it's expected to be acidic and tart, but the sweetness will definitely just cut that. So we're going to start with 2 cups. Let's get that in and get a taste test. All right, so I just used my funnel, our little sanitized funnel there, to put in the 2 cups of sugar and just gently kind of shook this around. I'm not shaking it aggressively, just trying to get it as dissolved as, or at least make it easier for me once I get it into the bucket here. It's about all I want right there. I'll pour this into the bucket and we'll do our first taste test. As you're using your stirring wand or whatever you're using to incorporate, what you're looking for is plastic against plastic. Don't use anything metal because you can scratch the bucket and put little shavings of plastic into your wine there. So plastic against plastic, you're feeling no sand filling, so no residual sugar as you kind of drag this across the bottom back and forth. That's what you're looking for. You're not trying to stir this up super fast or induce a lot of unnecessary oxygen. You're just looking for it to be dissolved fully, which it seems like it is now. So we'll do a little taste test. All right, so I didn't want to bore you guys with the constant additions, if you will. So the cranberry being very tart, one thing you need to remember is that sugar cuts the acidity, and it makes it more well-rounded. The other good thing about sugar is, if I don't know if you can really tell, but it changes the kind of viscosity or the body. Viscosity being kind of like the worst way to compare this, but oil. So it takes that really watery consistency in the mouth that can be kind of watered down in a fruit wine, and it adds some of that texture to it, some viscosity, if you will, increases that. So the final sugar content that was added was 3.75 cups to reach what I like and what my wife likes in this cranberry wine that we're going to be giving out for Christmas. It's nice, it's tart, but it's sweet, which slices through the tartness. It smells like a candied cranberry on the nose. The orange didn't come through as much as I like, but that's fine. It's still a little bit of zest on the very back end of the tongue as it goes down the throat. I think it's going to be a beautiful wine. So let's go ahead and get this into the bottle. All right, so we're going to use our bottling wand to go ahead and get that wine into bottles. I'll show you how to do that. And just one thing I wanted to point it out, all the corks have been sitting in that sanitizer like I showed a little bit earlier. But one of the reasons we do that is so that they are wet when they go into the bottle, not just sanitized. But you would not be able to get one of these corks into a bottle if it were dry. So it assists actually getting into the bottle itself. All right, so as my daughter holds that down for me, just wanted to explain. So that has that little nozzle that's a valve on the bottom, and she's just pressing it down, which is allowing the wine to fill the bottle. And then when the wine gets to the very top of the bottle, she's going to pick up the bottling wand, and it will be right where it needs to be. So pick it up right when it gets to the top, okay? Almost. Push down a little bit more. Slow, slow, slow. There you go. Pull it out, pull it out. All right. Taught my daughter and you guys, that's how we get our perfect level of wine. So we're going to fill up the rest of these bottles. All right, so as expected, we got 12 750 milliliter bottles and 4 of our smaller 350 or 357 milliliter bottles, what we call splits, which is exactly half of a full size wine bottle. And just for fun, we had a little bit of extra, so we poured it right into a glass. So let's go ahead and get these corked. All right, we're gonna get our sanitized cork there, drop that in first. That lets anything drip off that's excess onto the bottom. Grab our bottle. This is why I love this floor corker so much. Press down, it's spring loaded. Pops the bottle up, press straight down, and a perfectly corked bottle of wine. That's why I really suggest getting one of these if you're going to be bottling a lot of wine or meat or whatever. And that should be linked in the description below if you're interested. So let's get the rest of these bottled up. All right, so there you have it. We have all of the bottles in. This is how they will go out as Christmas gifts here. Welcome to Rudolph's Blush, our Christmas wine, cranberry with a hint of orange. That 13.38% alcohol is what we ended up with, and our small home winery, Vita Brevis. It's the best part is of having your own brews there, your own wines and meads, is you can do whatever you want with the labels. So I think we'll get a lot of fun out of this and kind of experiment before we give it out for Christmas. The rest of them, we just put small labels on until we decide exactly what it's going to be. So there you have it, Rudolph's Blush. All right, guys, so we have reached the end of the video with our Rudolph's Blush. Thanks for following me along as I made this great wine. It's good to drink right now, but it's only going to get better with age. I'm excited to give it out to friends and families for some gifts for this coming Christmas. With that being said, if you got some benefit out of this video, it helped you in some way, or you're just interested in watching make wine, please hit that like and subscribe to our channel. It really does help the channel out. Just a small channel trying to grow here and show people how to make wine and mead. So until the next time, cheers.